Welcome to Not Strong.
This is a podcast for men about real challenges and real growth.
Life can hit hard. What do you do when the things you've always relied upon quit working?
When the way you've always handled things just isn't enough.
When your physical, mental, and spiritual strength are put to the test?
Do you push through, hold on even tighter?
Or have you learned how to surrender? And what does that look like?
We're here to explore the human spirit with you and share what it takes to press forward through life's greatest challenges.
To tap into something bigger than ourselves and live a healthier, happier, more fulfilling life.
Join us on the Not Strong journey.
Well, welcome to Not Strong. My name's Kurtis Loftus.
And I'm Tim Hamby.
Not Strong, empowering the human spirit. Well, this is episode 17, Tim. The last week we were able to engage a good friend of yours, and I got to get to know
Eric. Yeah, he's great.
Everyone that saw that podcast, very positive response. Yeah.
Good, yeah. I let him know. I told him we'd like to have him back sometime. So he said definitely. He said,
and we fit 3 around the table, which was good.
Yeah,
we were kind of wondering, can we pull that off with 3 people?
Yeah.
The microphone was a little bit iffy, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and so we're trying a different setup today. Sitting across the table, leaving the setup the way that it was when we had a guest here and we were both on the same side. So we'll try it out, see how it goes, see what people think.
Yeah, hopefully everyone likes it. And, I think sitting across from each other feel a little more comfortable too.
Yeah, it feels natural.
Feels natural.
So, yeah.
And we got to let people know what the podcast is about today.
So, yeah.
You go for it, share, because this is a good one.
Well, it's about wisdom and I guess where it comes from, or at least where we try and pull it from. I mean, we talked
some
about
historical perspectives. Again, we get to share 60-year-old men wisdom. If it is.
Should be fun. It's kind of like, all right, well, what's your best life tips? And I'll provide mine. A lot of mine comes from experience, and I had a Will Rogers quote here. Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment.
Did we look up what the definition of wisdom was, just as a standard? Did you ever end up doing that?
No, I did. I did not.
Yeah.
But yeah. So but a lot of mine, it started early, and a lot of it comes from personal experience, and of course, there's many people and books and other different things.
So much
that have kind of been poured into me over the years.
It's like if we said wisdom to like our friends, right?
Yeah.
You would have 10 friends. 10 different kind of approaches or thoughts about what wisdom means or looks like to them, I bet. In a way. I mean, and I say that only because I think we're going to share some things that are from a Christian standpoint, right? From our faith and from things that we've studied and learned,
definitely.
Practiced.
90% of mine comes from my faith.
But
sure.
I got to say, even for me, there's some books I've read that are strictly, I won't call it secular, more on the spiritual side, spiritual leaning, but psychology, and some of that wisdom in those spaces where it's like, hey, just life practices. But that wisdom, I found it, and you'll hear this from me, much later, some of it much later in life, in my 50s, which is interesting. So we'll share some of that. We always try to pray, and if that's cool, we'll just take a moment, settle our hearts, our heads, and before we get into the topic of wisdom and what it looks like for the two of us and our spiritual well-being, we'll pray.
Yeah. Lord, we thank you for this day and this time to get together, and for everybody who's going to join us listening in. And we're going to be talking about wisdom today, and so much of that, Lord, comes from you. Yeah, we just pray for a little wisdom as we go into the topic, and happy to share it with others, and pray your blessings on everyone listening to this podcast. Thank you.
Amen. Wow. So, settling our hearts, trying to get our heads right so that this makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, hey, and just by the way, before we get roll into it.
You going to talk surf?
hurricane era.
I know the storm that keeps on giving.
Yeah. There was waves out there this morning. It looked like on the cams. So you got out? I saw one picture that looked like what day was that? Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
Did you take the whole day?
No, I couldn't. But by gosh, Tim, it was sweet.
Yeah.
And I went with a friend that I'd never surfed with, and that's odd. Developed some friendships in the last several years that are outside of my normal group. It's nowadays I'm hanging with different people. My life is a lot different than it was, 15 years ago, let's say.
Yeah.
So this gentleman I've known for a couple years, and he suggested we surf 25th Street.
Okay.
Right by the office. I'm like, let's do it. I haven't surfed there in years.
Yeah.
I think 20-something years ago was the last time I saw that break.
Break's good down there.
It can. Yeah. And that particular morning, it was empty, and it was all mine. I paddled out.
Nice.
Tim. Paddled out at 6:45, maybe 6:30, 6:45. No one out in the ocean. Beautiful glass, perfect conditions, easy paddle out. And it took a couple waves, 3 waves before I was really settled in. But I think 4th and 5th wave, I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. And then he shows up at about 7, my friend, and 7:15. Mm-hmm. So about 7:45 is when everything really turned on.
Yeah.
Tide had dropped out enough.
Yeah.
The waves were breaking a little deeper outside, and they were all the way in. So I was getting multiple 100-yard waves.
Oh, nice.
Oh, dude, it was like
nice.
Where you just like look back out and see the dude like 80 to 100 yards away from you.
Well, that's good.
It was good. It was good. I only needed 2 hours, and that was it. I was done. It was perfect.
Yeah. I went down to Guana with my friend Ryan Ketterman, and we had a good time. Yeah, I caught the whole tide, change, go dropping till, I guess a little afternoon or sometime. And so for me, it was a big test. How am I going to surf with the neuropathy and stuff after having only been out twice in so many months. And I did good. And I made like probably, 5 or 6 or 7 waves. I got pitched one time pretty bad.
I did too.
But the wave, down there, they were, big waves. There was nothing smaller than head high. And I'd say, the waves I was dropping in, trying to catch the big ones, a couple feet overhead. And I'd drop in fine. I could get to my feet fine. And I'd go straight. I wasn't doing anything fancy. I can't surf like I used to before cancer.
I'm not even surfing near what
But I was having fun, and in fact I had so much fun that I said I'm going to take the next step. This is a good first step. So I went down to Satellite to visit another friend on Saturday, and oh my gosh, it just breaks different down there. The waves are heavier,
more powerful.
Yeah, and the waves weren't any taller on Saturday than what they were here at Guana on Thursday, but they're powerful. And there's current, and, you're on top of a reef. And oh my gosh, I got my arse handed to me. And now granted, I did all this yard work on Friday to try and get down there. I got in the car at 5:45 in the morning, drove straight down there, and then out into the water. And so it was all kind of exhausting for me.
Of course.
And offshore winds, tide going out, you're getting sucked out. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I spent all my time paddling. And then the waves were, they were good, but they were also, there were some closeouts. You had to find the shoulder. And, but it was a bit too much. And same thing, after about half a day, I was just like, all right, well, I'm not going to try that again.
Ooh. Well, and my arms were sore. My triceps, my arms were sore from the paddling. Because I did plenty. And just so the novices or people that don't even surf, please understand. The hurricane swell, the waves we were riding were, good size, but it was a long period groundswell.
Yeah,
thankfully. Some of the forgiveness that happens out there in the ocean is there's a period of time.
No, I've been out on days where it gets a lot harder.
Yeah, a lot. And so that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you made it out.
We're
probably carrying still a little bit of that surf stoke, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't mean to bore a bunch of people with surf stoke, but it is not strong. And there is a surfer doing a massive duck dive probably at Chopu or Pipeline, right? That image. Yeah. So the heart and spirit still fits around the surf, spirit too. And,
And this swell is going to definitely go down. And I wish I had more time to get out on more days and more energy and all those things. But
you did it, and I did it, and we get to smile about it and talk about what is going to be, I feel like, one of the funnest, most intriguing podcasts yet. And I hope we do it justice, but wisdom. And I'm going to kick off, if that's okay, Tim.
Yeah, it's a good.
Yeah, I'm going to explain how I did some of my working through what wisdom looks like to me. I've already said that as a young man, I can tell you, didn't even acknowledge wisdom as important. It was like I understood the Bible, understood the relationship, or building a relationship with Christ, understood wisdom, or let's say knowledge at the time, as important to who I was going to become. And, I gathered it up as best I could. I read books. I loved books that did lean into the Spirit. I certainly loved the Word, the gospel. I was all of those things as a young man, but I don't think I really understood the challenges of wisdom. I had leaned in more to educational variety, knowledge and wisdom, and not deep godly, wisdom that centered on how it would help my life. Maybe I wasn't mature enough. Maybe I hadn't been through enough. I certainly was going to go through a lot, but to settle into this idea of wisdom and how big a deal it is for my life, there was trust and faith, and that authentic, open spirit of the man could live out a day by day, week by week existence without, falling back on my own sword or my own, ego and pride and taking everything back. There was always that struggle of, pride, ego overcoming even the wisdom, if you want to call it that. For me, I think it was just knowledge. Go through life, get to about 50, 53, middle age, really fully, like I've hit walls, I've hit challenges, I've leaned in, I've argued with God, I've, taken a lot of things on, tried to be a good man, all that stuff, Tim, and just kept failing, whatever you want to call it. And I just it took 53 years and a bunch of things going on in my life before I said, whoa, I am failing. This isn't working. So my story is going to revolve around 4 or 5 wisdom teachers. Gerald Jampolski, he's a 70s psychologist. He wrote a book called Love is Letting Go of Fear. You're going to hear that woven into some of my story and what my wisdom thoughts are. Then there's Apostle Paul, beautiful, centered on that transformative thing, the Damascus, journey, and then boom, big important thing in my life, as an example, and certainly as he writes out and when works through the letters and all the Gospels, and just the whole thing with Paul is beautiful.
Love Paul.
Love Paul. Then there's going to be the 12-step program. It's really big in my life. Richard Rohr is big in my life. And you will probably hear so those top four, and then maybe even some what lessons were learned from Solomon. So that's kind of all that stuff that I bring into the table. And before we get into more of that kind of story from you.
Well, with me, and I hate even telling anybody that I'm wise. I'm wiser than I used to be. How wise, I don't know. But all my values and beliefs have definitely, started young. I do have a Christian foundation. My mom was a Christian. My grandma went to church, went to Bible school. All these different things. I've been blessed in my life to have a lot of strong Christians around me. My wife, my mom, Gretchen's parents, my pastor. I've had the same pastor for 25 years, same guy. And he is a teacher. His preaching style is teaching. And he's a books guy. He reads the books and he tells me what's in them. And so, I've just learned. I've been to church my whole life and all those different things. But through all this time, I'm still, and I've read a lot of books, and there's some that have made huge impacts on me. But I have never been a guy that got into, I guess, books about spirituality or mysticism or self-help, any of these kinds of things. It's always been the Bible. And it wasn't because I wasn't picking them up and looking at them, or that people weren't handing it to me. Hey, it's a great book. You got to read this.
Right.
It's just that they weren't like revelatory to me. They didn't teach me anything new. I was reading, I was going, okay, right. Yep.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
But at the same time, the flip side to all that is as we live life, there's constant pull on us away from God.
Yeah.
The world pulls us away from God.
Yeah.
And I knew everything at a young age and stuff, and accepted Christ for real into my heart. I still got plenty distracted and pulled away. When I was young, I got arrested on 3 different occasions. And on one of those occasions, I sat inside a jail cell puking blood, a lot of blood. And and I'm just sitting there thinking, what am I doing? I've got, this wonderful thing in my life and that wonderful, thing in my life. Got all these blessings around me, and I'm just wasting it, and I'm not honoring God, the way I'm supposed to. And so that was a time that I came back to Jesus, and I said, please help me, please, please come into my life. And there's been other times like that where you go away, you come back. So on top of that, so I'm a big life experience guy. And it's not just my own life experience, but the life experience of people around me who I see and who've watched them transform, different things that they've gone through that I haven't. And I've been through a lot. I've been through a ton. And I think I've told you, Gretchen has told me before. She said, "You're a grounded person, but if based on everything that you've been through in your life, and she knows everything about me, you should be like one of the most abnormal people I know, and somebody with a big chip, and and I don't know, and I think that that's due to, to my faith. And I think it's due to, a sense of optimism that I have to have gone through a lot of things. And it's not like, I'm not saying woe is me. I don't, that's not me. It's, there's a lot of ups and downs in life, and I've experienced highs and lows. But yeah, I've stayed pretty grounded in my faith. God's always there when I come back to Him, need Him, and there have been books and resources and things that have made a huge impression on me. One of them, C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, and I just love it because he explains it. He makes a case for Christianity, point to point to point to point, and that was something that really, oh my God, helping me understand deeper. And and then there's other things like that. And another one was, you mentioned an old 70s book, Harold Kushner, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And he just explained that, and this is important, and it's one of the things that I would pass along to other people, is you look at the world, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. It looks like chaos. And you think about a tapestry. He painted it as a picture of a tapestry. And on the backside of that tapestry, from your perspective, your human worldly perspective, it's a bunch of knots and lines running everywhere. It makes no sense. And there's no order. But from God's perspective, which we can't see, we can't have God's mind, it's a beautiful picture on the other side of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Everything works together for good. And so, that's kind of one of the things that I would, if people ask me, what's your best life advice? What are some of the things that you think people should understand? With me, it starts with trusting God. And part of that, for people who can't trust God all the way, all the time, that's something to think about. Yes, because you're not seeing the big picture. That's what I would. The first most important piece of advice, and of course, it all comes from the Bible, and all C.S. Lewis was doing was explaining, Christianity, that's what I would encourage people to do. Establish a relationship with Jesus Christ. Start with the Bible about tapping into this power, this free gift of grace that's been offered to you, and why that's so important. But that's where I would start with. Well, then, on faith.
So this is why we're doing it, because I'm going to get ready to do some challenging.
Yeah.
And that's what, again, from my own Christian experience, from my own love of Jesus and what I've been through. When I hit that 50-ish mark and 52 came along and then 53, and I'm at the back side of what is some pretty challenging things emotionally for me, from a life expectancy thing and just my own personality, sort of saddled with this, alcohol issue that was my only, at that point, seeming medicative method to get myself through a day. It's a long, winding story. It's not worthy of today's discussion, but I knew at that point, with some things that kept happening repetitively, like they say in the program that it's like insanity. You can just keep repeating the same thing and expecting some kind of different result. I'm literally living this insane life with this relationship, believe it or not, as best I can make it with Jesus, right? End up in the program, the 12-step program, and one of the first things that I realized in the rooms or in this program is that Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, who created this thing, came up against, because it built around Sermon on the Mount. If you really do your research on the program, it's Sermon on the Mount and it's Book of James and something else filtered into it, where they're pulling a bunch of scriptural stuff and a bunch of practices, and it's great orientation around like surrender, right? There's this big surrender element to it. You got to let go of your pride, let go of your ego. You got to start to discover what the heck is going deep inside of you, and why that hole or that thing that's inside of you is so hard to figure out. So Dr. Bob, Bill Wilson, they get together, they start this thing. It's just the best way for me to tell it to this audience is they understood that this disease and the people that were going to come into the rooms were going to be challenged by God. And so one of the first things that I started hearing was, this God thing has to be dealt with in a way which is available to everyone. It's crazy. Now think about that. You and I know our relationship and who this what this Trinity looks like, right? Someone coming into the program and into recovery for the first time and looking around, I can tell you straight up, they're like, I do not want anything to do with God. Yeah. And they're literally pushing back, and they are not going to come back if they feel like, this is, don't Bible thump, don't give me this, God of this, the desert fathers, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, wow, this is curious. How do they settle this thing? How are they going to move even me through this, because I'm an open person. I'm talking to family. I'm talking to my daughters. I'm explaining what the program looks like. And they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Why can't you express a Jesus thing? Why can't you say God is this and that? And I'm like, well, they've learned people won't necessarily accept that kind of God thing. They say God, higher power, is not you. That's how they start this relationship off, with kind of getting yourself past the ego. That's the deal. You got to get past your ego. And the ego is a powerful thing that I said already. Crushed Solomon. I mean, think about it. The most wise man in all the land. What took him down? His pride. His ego.
It's the root of much evil.
Yes. It's the hardest thing to settle. It really is. And I was like, okay, one of the first things I had to do, Tim, was just go, all right, I'm going to have to just put my pride and ego aside, even when it comes to relationship. I know that relationship. I'm ready to dig deeper into it. So what Dr. Bob and what the program kind of looks like is there's a power. These are the basic things. There's a power of shared brokenness. Okay. There's humility as a gateway. There's spiritual simplicity. And then they bring service into this, which is super important to recovery. Just getting out of yourself and helping another human being out is super important. They say help another alcoholic. But, it's like that's crucial to what becomes the healing and sort of that forward movement of a person. Day at a time. These are the typical things: integration of faith and action, and community over isolation. So this is what was cool when I was trying to distill all this stuff. Dr. Bob's deepest wisdom in one line: real freedom comes from surrender to God, to truth, and to love expressed through service to others. That's the program. So whether they attach my God to it at that time, Jesus, I'm like, I know who it is for me, but I'll take that too, that message. So I started in terms of wisdom, or in terms of my life and trying to surrender. I had to get my ego and pride even out of the, Christian God thing in a way, so that I could make myself useful to other people. Because that was going to be really important to me. They also say, principles over personalities. They say attraction, not promotion. There's so many beautiful concepts developed in the program where, as human beings, we start to... I probably have found some people that are agnostic. It's the strangest thing, that have just as much love in their spirit and in their approach to humanity as anyone else that is Christ-oriented and living out what we would say is probably the most deepest relationship you can have with a higher power, with God, with Jesus. It's deeply rooted in love. And that's where I also want to go eventually with this. How that love reflects itself, through you out to other humans. And that's some of that wisdom stuff too that we'll get to.
And it's funny because I did my exercise and went down a list of different things that I would
perfect
tell people and or advise people, and number 3 is funny. You're mentioning it. Mine was pride is a killer. Learn to live, love, and work without it. And I feel like. And that, where does that come from? That comes from my own experience, and it comes from being humbled over and over throughout life, as a young man, as a middle-aged man, and as an older man, as a, the loss of a business, after it was extremely humbling. The time that I was talking about earlier, which was also, when I was younger, alcohol related, and getting arrested for stupid stuff, and in my 20s, but it was humbling, and and then of course, cancer. You're not in control of anything.
No,
but I have always been able, most of my life, to live without a lot of pride. Not that people. It's funny, managing a design business, and there was people there that. Designers, developers, and every once in a while, I would have to manage a situation of an ego, and I hated people working with ego because I tried to example it of and so we got in a conversation one day with myself and a developer, and he was saying, you can't tell me you don't have ego. You can't tell me you don't have pride, that you don't care about your work and what people say about it, and I told him, and I won't say this 100%. We're human. There's some percentage of it, but a large part of it, I was able to detach my personal feelings from these things and say it's just business, and I'm not being critical of your work, and I don't care if you're critical of mine. If I feel strongly about it and I believe it's great, then I'm going to believe it's great, no matter what you say. But if you make a good point, I've always been open to that. Make a good point, and I'll take it to heart.
Sure. Men don't, and we've said this a bunch, we don't get vulnerable. We have a hard time with our pride. We have a certainly bigger problem with our ego. This is the challenge with, again, wisdom and ego is they can duke it out. I believe they can duke it out pretty good. You can have some knowledge or some wisdom, and you can go, I don't see it applying today, or it's not really, it's a hard practice. So here I get to weave in the Richard Rohr a little bit, because Richard, for me, he's a Franciscan monk. Yes, we got some daily notes from him, and from his Center for Action and Contemplation. It's a cool little setup in New Mexico, and they've been doing all this, pushing out very good literature or good Christian-oriented, God, faith-oriented material. Wrote a book called Breathing Underwater that was built off of the 12-step program. So there's some great wisdom in some of his highlighted stuff that I could find was transformation comes through descent, not ascent. So that's some of, what, and that's biblical, obviously.
Yeah.
The true self versus the false self. So there's a ton of biblical reference as well to that shadow self, that dark self that we kind of lean into. A non-dual consciousness, which is sort of, again, similar, where you're just not going black, white, right, wrong. This is good, this is bad. The reason he sets it up that way, I think, is because he realizes we all learn from all of those things, right? I got this this sort of concise statement on Rohr's gift, and it is, the path to God is not through perfection or achievement, but through surrender, which we say a lot, letting everything belong, discovering the true self in God. And this is what we've talked about when it comes to that authentic self. Who are you in God? What is that true self in God? And then allowing love to transform even our wounds. So the wounds, the pain, the suffering, the addictions, the challenges, that becomes the makeup of the man, or, who we are, that is so rich and maybe not perfect, but so important, or in acceptance,
Yeah.
But you come to that through the grace and love of Jesus and through that surrender to him, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of the things that, it aligns with, some of these things in terms of things that I would want people to know. And, my pastor, Richard Cooper, he has said that recognize that church is not a gathering place of perfect people. It's a hospital for broken people.
Love that one.
And, that's everyone. Yeah. That's all of us.
Beautiful. Here's what I asked about Richard Rohr and Paul. Paul's teaching. So Paul, road to Damascus, the huge, transformative thing. Love that story. Love what it says about us and what it says about the possibilities for grace, It's like, oh my gosh. So I started going down this other rabbit hole a little bit with Richard Rohr and Paul, because I thought the parallels were so beautiful between the two, right? And the messages and what Paul shares. And it says, here's Paul. This is how, remember I just kind of said descent, not ascent. I mean, it's transformation comes through descent, not ascent. Parallels with Paul, we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed.
Yeah.
It's, Paul's wisdom is weakness is not the obstacle to God's work, but the very place where God's grace is revealed. Again, just it's a reinforcement of this idea that our wisdom in our understanding really comes from pain and suffering and digging deep into the Word and trying to figure out truth, or what is God's truth, right? And man, these men have been expressing it in different ways for years.
Yeah, and that is the kind of the for mere Christianity for C.S. Lewis is sort of the same things. His whole book kind of summarizes that everyone knows there's a real right and wrong. There's a moral law. And that points to a God who gave us this moral law. The problem is we all break that law and we can't fix it.
Sure.
We can't fix ourselves. And that's why God came to the world as Jesus, as a man. Mm-hmm. And he lived a perfect life that we couldn't. He died for our failures and rose again to bring us back to God. And, then of course the question becomes, will we trust him as Lord? But it's that same thing, and we're broken people, all of us, and we all have these challenges and these sufferings and these pains, and
but that brokenness,
that's where you grow and learn from, and that's where, like you said, I guess Richard says that grace can come in, and that's Jesus's purpose, to bring us grace.
No, the beauty of our transformative lives as humans, as people that go through pain, go through suffering, go through problems, and find ourselves stronger. That's where Christ's, love is seen. Yeah. It's just like it's so powerful.
Working out our salvation.
But it is seen. It is understood. People that you gather around and worship. They know it. They get it. I love this right here because remember I mentioned Solomon. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask about Solomon because I felt his wisdom and then how it failed him. It talks to his heart. Solomon's mind was brilliant, but his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord, his God. So he allowed affections to be divided by foreign alliances, idol worship, and unchecked desires. So again, wisdom can guide, but the heart's loves ultimately shape our destiny. The heart's love ultimately shapes our destiny. And what we worship will rule us.
Yeah.
So, it's like...
And I think that's like a pretty natural cycle of life. And I think it is, and I would describe it as a cycle.
It is.
Because you're always getting sucked back into the world. You may start with a ton of wisdom. You may be as wise as King Solomon. But eventually all the trappings catch up with you and pull you back down. The person that I thought of, when I was thinking about, sharing this, was Tim Keller. who's a famous theologian, Presbyterian author, and has written a lot of good books and stuff. But as I was researching it, I said, well, he got it from the Apostle Paul and C.S. Lewis, who talked about it in his book. And so, okay, well, this makes perfect sense. But it's basically that you really need to live your life with an eternal perspective. And again, I've mentioned it on here before in the past, that like this, a lot of people think that we're these physical beings in this physical world, and we have these spiritual moments, these, epiphanies and times in church and what, and that's, they've got it backwards. We're spiritual beings. Yes. We're having a physical moment, and it's very short in the light of eternity, going forward. And so, as you live, and again, it's impossible because we're imbued by sin, and we can't shake it off in this world. But if you live with the thought that, man, I'm going to be around forever, and the things in this world becomes less important, and the heart things with God become much more important. If you can really take it to heart that that this world is not our home, and it helps then to stay out of those cycles. You're not going to be 10 for 10 or batting 1,000. Nobody can, but it helps. And if you try and think of things that way and live your life with that eternal perspective. And again, we had read, I think, in the last cast, this verse from 2 Corinthians. So we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. That future, that eternity is unseen. We can't see it yet. We can't even wrap our brains imagine it, but that's what faith is. For the things that are unseen, or for the things that are seen that we can see here are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Another one that I had was, that I would tell anybody and tell my daughters and, friends or whatever, it's, reflect on and understand your core values. If it's, whatever it is, if it's being honest, if it's loving others, if it's serving others, if it's whatever the things that you believe most deeply, and then stand on those things. And, the person, who I trace that back to is my old business partner, Ed Bondi. He was just such a good guy. And this is another example of people who are around me. I was fortunate to work with him for 15 years, and he was just such a good man. And he was very principled and very consistent in the way that he lived. And he talked about core values a lot, or what are the core values of our company, so I think that's important for someone to reflect on it. Just take time to reflect on those things that in your life, it's the way you treat people or whatever.
Agree.
Yeah, if you can get those worked out, I think that's really beneficial. And then of course, again, be consistent.
A lot of my development spiritually, or even from a relationship with Christ, did not know the possibilities.
And I think that's normal. And I'm definitely still growing. I've grown so much over the last year. Yeah. And I think it's an upward trajectory. I think that's the way it can be. Salvation works. I've
seen it go the exact other way,
yeah.
brother.
Oh, yeah.
It can consume.
It's this.
It can do that, but it can also just fully consume. And I've watched people just go and never return,
Yeah, and that's sad.
It's a tragic thing.
That's sad.
Breathing underwater, since I brought it up, I think you cannot heal what you do not first acknowledge, which is a pretty powerful sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. How do you expect to take care of yourself if you're not even going to acknowledge it, right?
Yeah. No, that's part of the surrender.
And seeing maybe my pride is a bit too much. Maybe my ego is getting in the way, right? I think again, men finally saying, "Is this a pride issue?" That's how you look at it. Is this pride that's getting in the way? Is this?
They may not even be aware of it.
That's right. But you have to sort of do that self-analysis. You have to have something that's heavy enough, strong enough, that's pushing you to analyze it, to look at it, to be able to say, wow, this is a problem. Without facing stuff, everything's theoretical. Transformation is theoretical. And here's another one. God does not love us if we change. God loves us so that we can change. So how about that?
Say that again.
God does not love us if we change.
Yeah.
God loves us so that we can change. It's beautiful, right? That's that divine love. Here's one. Surrender will always feel like dying, and yet it is the necessary path to liberation, which we've said plenty here.
Yeah.
And we suffer to get well, which is fine.
New life.
Yep. Here's some scripture. Confess your sins to one another and pray to each other so that you may be healed. And that's James 5:16. So again, confessing sins to one another.
Yeah.
You do that in your disciple groups.
Yeah.
You do it in your fellowship groups. We do it in recovery. We do it in that sort of relationship of bringing someone along that's brand new in the program.
You have to do it to have a relationship with Christ. It's required. Yeah. It's confession of sin and repentance against it. Acknowledging your sin and asking for forgiveness. And the good part about it is you've only got to do that once with Jesus, and you're done. And you're forgiven for past sins, future sins, and present sins, and But I think it obviously must be a healthy thing if it's a requirement to have a relationship with Christ.
Yeah. I have what is this distilled sort of, I want to call it an overview that touches on honesty, surrender, forgiveness, living in the present, and then service. So in the honesty side of this, your 12 steps, step 1 says, admitted we were powerless. And Rohr says, you cannot heal what you do not first acknowledge. And then Jampolski says, fear and love cannot coexist. So Paul says, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do. So that's Romans 7:15. He says again, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do. So and then the reflection here is where am I afraid to face the truth about myself? And then this practice, whisper, I release fear, I welcome love. So that's that fear, love, challenge for us.
In my take on, because I had it here too, it was like number 5, be honest with yourself and with others. And, where that comes from for me, I don't just, from everything that's come into me through the people around me. Again, my pastor, church, Bible, whatever.
Well, coming from someone that had a couple ways to wear a mask, it does not work. I pulled that mask off a few times, let myself be honest and vulnerable when I was a younger man, got my butt kicked a few times, learned that it might be better that I just go ahead and fake it, and try to wear that mask of, man, I've got this. I can handle this. I'm a strong, smart man that can take care of these things and
Yeah.
God, I hope you applaud me for all the work I do.
Tell you what I wrote down about it is, live authentically. You're a unique individual. You have value and worth.
Beautiful.
And just build your identity in God. Don't worry about what people think about you. Truth is, probably people don't think about you as much as you
Right.
imagine that maybe they do.
One of my favorite sayings is, I might not be much, but I'm all I ever think about.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, with the people who do think about you, I mean, they're either going to be your real friends or they don't matter.
Sure.
But yeah, I just have seen from afar different people that choose to live authentically, and I love it. That speaks to me when I see it.
I think you're right. Well, I know you're right, Tim. Here's surrender. Trusting God's care. 12 Steps program says it this way. Turn our will and our lives over. Let's turn our will and our lives over to the God of our understanding. Rohr says, surrender will always feel like dying, yet it is the path to liberation. And then Jampolski says, we can choose to listen to the voice of fear or the voice of love. It's a pretty, and I know when we simplify it to that point of fear versus love, it gets a little bit trickier, but there's some strength and truth in there. Paul, I love this. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. That's 2 Corinthians. It's been one of my favorites. And then the reflection on this is, what weakness am I resisting that could become a doorway to grace? Isn't that beautiful? What weakness am I resisting that could become a doorway to grace? Who wants to be weak? No one.
Right.
But if you resist that vulnerability, if you resist that opportunity for pain, because it's coming, but you don't want it. So you end up going through these things without ever fully understanding the lesson, or without really even fully understanding God's grace. It's like you never get there because you blunt it.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, and it's sad. I think that
it just happens, though. It happens because men and women, humanity does not like pain. We do not like suffering.
Yeah.
Recognizing something greater than yourself that has you, holds you, carries you, is not easy for people. Just don't like it. It doesn't make sense. It's like, nope, does not make sense. And for someone that has been crushed and beaten and, finds that there's very little solace in this world, and they let go to something greater, bigger, and that actually arrives in the most extraordinary way, fills them up with a sense of love and an understanding that, wow. If I looked at my life and said to someone, I felt like I knew gratitude. Let's say I told someone, as a kid, I was grateful. And these are the reasons I was grateful. And there were valid reasons. They all show up on a list that is, oh yeah, I've got my health and well-being. I've got I'm a pretty smart kid. I've got this talent. It's kind of, it's all these things that are really cool, right? I'm grateful. Until they get pulled away or challenged or, something, like just business change, like you and I've talked about, when no longer do you like the work, no longer are you happy inside, no longer are you fulfilled, no longer do you have the same sort of curious joy that you had as a little boy, and it's all been stripped away, and you're wondering, what happened to it? Why did it go away? The true gratitude, what happened to, or even bigger gratitude? When you get that back, Tim, when you have yourself filled back up with these possibilities, it's like, oh my gosh, it's extraordinary.
And of course, I had that on my list. Number 4, live with a sense of gratitude. And I know you're big into that. And, oh my gosh, it's so beneficial. And where does that come from for me? I don't know. I know I've always had it, and for a long time, and even when I was doing things that were contrary to God or to my knowledge, and whatever, I still always had a great sense of gratitude.
I'm going to hit one here that's really, I think, important.
Okay. Yeah.
Didn't expect it to show up on the wisdom conversation in it, but it's forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, I didn't have that down, and it is so important.
It is. And releasing judgment.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's massive, wonderful thing about forgiving. And if you can do it, it opens you up and frees you up. And
it really does. It's so powerful.
So 12 steps, obviously what we do in the 12 steps is you make your amends and you start working on some of that. And that's a life practice that's so valuable. And
forgiving yourself.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Rohr says, we suffer to get well. Jampolski says, forgiveness is the key to happiness. Paul says, be kind and compassionate to one another. Forgive each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. And that's Ephesians 4:32. The reflection on this is, who or what am I still holding in judgment? Who or what am I still holding in judgment? Yeah. And it's an exercise that I've gone through. We call it living amends. I will continue as long as I live to practice certain principles, again, that my wife sees, my children see, my family sees, my friends hopefully see, where they're like, oh, that's a different human being. It's not just saying, hey, for selfish reasons, can we do this and forgive and forget and blah, blah, and you move on. No, this is like you live out your life as a person that's radically changed.
Yeah.
And that's the best you can do because it took, certain things. And if you're fortunate enough and have.
And I think that those kinds of things, it just takes doing it, stepping into it without fear and trying it. And seeing how it makes you feel, seeing how things work out.
Well, I know that it's a big challenge for even
if it's not reciprocal.
For people that you don't have to be in recovery to practice some of this. And I know that it's a big challenge. And there are people that will not do it, will never do it, can't do it, don't want to forgive someone, they want to hold it, and they're just going to do that. And I would say here, at least from this table, from this position, that is robbing yourself, like we've said before, of that sunlight of the Spirit. You are robbing yourself of all the beauty that you can hold and all the peace that you can have because that thing has been removed. Amen. It's gone. Amen. It doesn't have to take up space. We sometimes call it renting space in your mind. You don't have to let that thing.
You're stealing from yourself.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. How about this one? Living in the present.
I've got it right here. Number 7, live for the moment. Don't get stuck in the past and don't get caught waiting for tomorrow. Yeah. Live in the present, and that which comes back around to kind of thing I was talking about earlier with living with an internal perspective. Live for the moment, guy, and enjoy every second of it because tomorrow is not promised. Right? Mm-hmm. Again. All of us, every one of us, we're just here for a blip. We're only here for just a second.
Paul has a beautiful one here. Forget what is behind and strain toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal. That's Philippians. And then the reflection here is, where do I let fear from the past or anxiety about the future control me? So where do I let fear from the past or anxiety about the future control me?
Yeah.
Right? And so there it is.
Yeah.
Are you controlled by those things?
Yeah.
That you don't want to be owned by that.
Yeah.
And here's a practice for you. With each breath, repeat, now is enough. Love is here.
Mm-hmm.
Now is enough.
Yeah.
Love is here.
Yeah.
Here's a thing on the service side, which is really, again, what is probably the most beautiful thing about the 12 step is you carry the message. So there's a piece here from Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers. Here's a Dr. Bob quote, trust God, clean house, help others. And then here's Paul. Do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility, value others above yourself. And that's Philippians as well. So how can my healing flow outward in service today?
Yeah, that's modeling like the life of Christ. Yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of us, build our identity, around whatever it is, being a dad or,
That's right.
Being a mom, and whatever.
Being an artist,
good
being
husband,
a
good
surfer,
wife.
being smartest man in the room.
That's not your purpose. Your purpose is to honor God, and in all those things, in all those areas, if it's your relationship with your husband or wife, your relationship with being a parent to your children, and so. Honor God and do it by treating yourself with respect. Try to adopt a healthy lifestyle, mentally, physically, spiritually, and then focus on honoring God in all those things, in all the areas, relationships, in work, everything you do, honoring Him. And, the summary statement I had on this subject as a life isn't that complicated. There's always going to be struggles. You got to understand that. That's promised to us in the Bible. There's going to be trouble. We live in a very beautiful and very broken world, but you have a choice. You have a choice of how you're going to walk through it. And, you can either go through it by yourself and carry all that guilt and all that pain and stuff, that you have. You can carry it by yourself, or you can have the creator of the universe walk right through it all with you. And, again, there's no other way to finding that real and lasting peace, but, graciously, mercifully, that's what is offered to every one of us. And everybody's got the choice, and it's, what's your decision going to be?
I have a closing.
Okay, yeah.
Perfect love casts out fear. That's 1 John 4:18. Mm-hmm. Rest quietly, let love, not fear, be your last word. And here's this summary creed. Pauline spirit. Ready? I admit my weakness. That's Romans 7. I receive grace in surrender. 2 Corinthians 12. I forgive as I'm forgiven. That's Ephesians 4. I live forward, not backward. Mm-hmm. That's Philippians 3. And finally, I serve in humility and love. And that's Philippians 2.
Yeah.
So it's
wise advice.
It's so beautiful to see it succinct and easy to understand. Let's pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. Like we get it, we understand it. Now pay attention and live it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was good. I mean, we hit it pretty well. We didn't know how it was going to work, and it was nice the way the notes kind of just sewed them together.
Well, yeah, and it's just interesting, because I know we're different in a lot of ways, but obviously I
do love the idea of staying that way, staying curious, being open, sharing what is, I think, really strong truths. Mm-hmm. These are good truths. Mm-hmm. The wisdom that is being discussed today. So I'm just grateful we got to do this, Tim. It was a great one. And I'll do my best to edit it, make it concise. We would love to have you share our podcast with friends.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Correct?
If you enjoyed it, please do.
Where can you find
We're
us?
on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts.
Spotify.
We're on iHeartRadio, Spotify. Yeah, all those places.
All right. Well, that would be great. And again, my name's Kurtis Loftus.
I'm Tim Hamby.
And we appreciate you. This has been Not Strong, Empowering the Human Spirit. Next week.